left, uh, Chris McAllister. How you doing, Chris?
Doing pretty good.
Awesome. So we got a wonderful opportunity to talk to a forward thinker and someone who's going to blow us out of our seats, and that's not Chris McAllister this time. It's actually Dan Rockwell with Big Kitty Labs. Dan, can you tell our audience a little bit about you and Big Kitty Labs?
Yeah, so I run a small, my partner and I, Tashara Kulkarni, and myself, we run a software development agency here in Columbus, Ohio. We have teams all over the world, India and Ukraine, and of course here in the United States. And we basically specialize in helping startups take their ideas to life. We work with Fortune 500 companies and smaller companies, and we help people take the idea and actually form it into an actual product, and then get to market and raise money. We work with venture capitalists. We work with, we work with people who are broke. We work with people that have money. We work with people that have ideas. We work with presidents, whatever. We really kind of specialize in knowing the full gambit from idea to traction to true momentum to like, oh my goodness, now you have a business. Whew. So we really specialize in that whole gambit. We work with students. We do a lot of mentoring. We do a lot of talks, and it's been a blast for me. Every day I get to have I get to talk to 10 different entrepreneurs every day, and try to keep everything sane, which is fun. But it's good. It's a roller coaster.
Keep it real. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Dan's one of those few people that I know that I can talk to, and I can take anything that I'm thinking, whatever weird about the future and conjecture, and it's this bumbling conversation that has the ability to push out the imagination to its edge, but also think through the strategic business implications. And that's such a unique combo I think you bring about who you are.
Thank you. I actually love doing that. I love taking, sometimes it's fun to take, three things that don't belong together and smash them together and see what the business could be. COVID is an interesting simulation in terms of taking an entire world and putting it on pause for 6 months and seeing, where the innovation lies, and we're seeing that. We're seeing, certain businesses basically go into extinction, and then we're seeing new businesses appear. Because the entrepreneurial spirit is not really tied to greed. It's really sort of tied to the enablement of the human spirit. What can I do? Where's the opportunity of what I want to do for next? And so there was a time there during the COVID where there was no hope. There was like, it's over, right? And then hope kind of got back to the table, which is cool. Those are the places where I thrive. I love those.
When you say hope came back to the table, can I ask a question, Jimmy, or did you have something?
Of course I have something, but go for it, man.
Yeah. Because I totally jive with that entrepreneurial spirit. That's what Jimmy and I are about. It's the moving the rock idea. You're advancing, you're moving it forward, you're making it better. Yep. However, I do think there's like this more, not entrepreneurs, a malaise that's hanging over society as a whole. And tracking with you that entrepreneurs are different, but what is right now giving you that indication or that signal that there's hope and there's new vision and all of that?
Well, I mean, there's a convergence of microtrends happening right now. So the convergence of microtrends is dealing with the new norm. So we have a new norm experience that is, for example, mediums like this are becoming much more common. They're no longer like, ooh, let's do a video call, right? It's becoming a staple, right? So you have a trend that's changing on how people interact. You have a trend in addressing the current darkness in the room, COVID, right? You have a trend on grant funding. Most entrepreneurship activities they're always going to be geared around access to capital. So where does the capital come from? Well, right now there's a lot of people that want to see innovations that deal with COVID. So there's 70% of the funding that's out there right now is probably hitting on the COVID angle, at least in the visceral instant right away. So you're building everything from systems to check your employees and make sure they're okay to contact tracing. Contact tracing was in its infancy when this thing started. Now it's like, there's going to be 9 platforms that do it great, right? So it's that's a micro trend. And then I think people are understanding the pathway. They're learning the new networking. They're learning the new way to socialize, the new way to promote their business, the new way to make their business more authentic. What's interesting is the authenticity has survived the digital translation layer, which is really pretty amazing. Before, it used to be very in-hands, in person. Now it's, I'm going to express my product to you in a new way, maybe video-wise or whatnot. I still can sell it. I know you still want those cool shoes. You still want that cool guitar. You still want this thing over here. You know what I mean? So people still want the services. We're just translating the mediums to communicate that message. And I think certain businesses will definitely take off and thrive. And in a lot of businesses, like the diner down the street, that's going into extinction, right? Can't get people in there. It's changing this whole dynamic of what it means to have traction and flow in terms of customers coming in. So in a lot of ways, sitting down and just thinking about how your river works. I made up a term once for a talk I did at Startup Weekend. I called it stream engineering, where you want to find a river of something moving fast, like customers, and you want to sit right next to the river and study that traffic and understand how people move, how they think, and then build a business right by the river, so they could turn the wheel of what you're trying to do and make a product. What happened with COVID is the river went away, went dry. And so all the businesses by the river are like, and now we've had to sort of or better understand where is the flow, where is the use. Technologies like Zoom, their profit is up 3,500, 3,500% in 6 months. I mean, Amazon is up 78 billion, right? But it's benefited some, and it hasn't benefited others. But yeah, I think it's really not about your idea so much. It's about where you think your customer is, and how your customer's feeling, and whether or not they're going to be open to what you're doing. It's fun.
Right. And the bridge between the idea and the customer is where sales exists. And when we kicked off, before the show, you talked about, you work with a lot of folks that want to sell something.
Yep.
I think it's fascinating to me to think about innovation, how innovation can occur inside, as you were talking about, a startup.
Mm-hmm.
But innovation also occurs inside large Fortune 500 companies.
Mm-hmm.
And in that environment, the salesperson changes from a traditional salesperson to an IT person who is now selling IT innovations inside the organization.
Yep. Yeah. A lot of that is really, all sales is deeply rooted in rapport and value and truly understanding the whole life cycle of your product. Where does it fit in the customer's mind from a value sense? And then making sure they have access to it in such a way that they don't get bogged down in the experience to acquire it. Nothing kills sales more than I see the shiny object, but I have to go through 18 hoops to buy it. Screw it. I'll decide not to buy it. You know what I mean? And that's part of in a lot of ways, that's also sort of an after effect of our mindset today. Growing up, I didn't have Google to tell me everything about a certain historian. I had to go and get a book and read. Oh man, that sucked getting that book out. Now everything's fast, visceral. I can put a young engineer in a room with a case of Mountain Dew and some YouTube videos, and they can learn how to code in 16 hours. Couldn't do that before. It's just the rate of how we want things today is crazy. And it's also instant gratification. And so with that mindset, our sales mindset is also prone to that perception of instant gratification. So sales is as much about the product experience and how well it could actually tell its story and communicate its value as it's the importance of the actual salesperson to establish rapport enough to sell it to somebody, So they have to deliver. Some of the best products out there actually don't communicate anything at all, and you just get them. Crest never told me how great teeth whitening is. Sure, they spent $58 billion on advertising, but I never thought about it. I just picked it up and buy it because it's a staple, right? So staples are great. Is your product going in a staple mindset, or is your product going in like, here's a toothbrush that actually plays Rihanna when you brush your teeth. And I don't know if I need that or not. Now it's possible, and I can upload it with different songs. So I can listen to 50 Cent when I brush my teeth, but do I want to do that? I don't know. That toothbrush is $78, but the one I get from Crest is $4. You're competing against a staple, and you're trying to innovate in such a way that the value transition doesn't work there. But, for example, my wife wants to learn how to sing. Getting a singing coach traditionally could run $10,000, but I could use a masterclass, pay online $38, and learn from the woman who sang the Frozen theme, right? And it's authentic and it's real and it feels true. It feels like she can access it and she's enabled. She can do it from the comfort of her home. So it's the enablement of it and that proposition and how it gets sold.
When you think about like where the river dried up and leaning into that moment, it's crazy that you use that as an analogy, because that's exactly Jimmy and I have talked about this. Like,
cool,
business changed, the river dried up, and I even told my kids this. I was like, I got to go through the woods. I already had some little streams that were developing, but now I got to like dam up and figure out some pools and dig it out, and the whole thing. Where right now? Do you see the customer transaction changing? Because I think a strength for you, and if you want to hit this too, that's cool. Some rivers that are new, but then in addition to that, like COVID, what has changed about how people think about the engagement process or buying? That you're paying attention to, in addition to the technological piece you were speaking at. What are those psychographic changes?
Well, there's definitely a renewed focus for, search engine optimization, SEO type stuff, making sure that people can find what they're doing online. You got to be online. There's a big push. There's always a big push for you should be in every search engine box. So for example, if you make a cool product, but your product doesn't exist on Apple's search engine box for the iPhone, then that's just another place where you might not exist. So I always like to think about it like, if I go into Google and I type in this keyword I heard on the Oprah show, I want to find something. If I go into the Android Play Store and I'm thinking about that theme and I type it in that word, I want to see something. So you kind of want to be in, this used to be a theme that was bigger with me, I'd say 3 or 4 years ago than it is now, but I still think it's true now, is that you kind of want to be every place that a customer may expect to see you. And that's all in the interpretation of the brand itself and the brand and the product and the value perception. In other words, does the customer, would they want to see you on display in the mall? Yes or no? Would they expect to see you on a billboard going down the street? Would they expect to see you printed on a napkin they had at McDonald's, right? Maybe, maybe not. And it's kind of, those are all opportunities for you to sort of change and maybe get a new audience, but you should sort of think about where the audience is. Now, where is the audience now? Well, people are trapped in their houses and they're looking for things to do, and they're, we have a new cultural norm, whereas I'm wearing a shirt and there's nothing else on, right, right, or I don't mean to go in that space, but or I'm multitasking. I know a lot of friends who are doing a call and doing Call of Duty in the background. No, exactly. We'll get that meeting done tomorrow, right? So because we can control what we can project here, right, and say for work. That's a new medium. That's actually not unlike texting, where you ever text to somebody and you reply and they type something, they erase it, and then they start typing again, right? You don't get to see, like in person, you don't get that chance to rewrite. In person, if I said, yeah, I really like sneakers. Oh, I meant flowers or something like that. I screwed up in person, but online I can change it. I can modify it. So we're kind of moving into this experience online where we're beginning to edit our behaviors and edit our projection of perceived behavior, which I think is going to be good and bad.
Yeah,
mostly bad.
Well, it'll surface, the people that want to check out and not put an effort forth. I think about that person who's in sales, who's scheduling now. It's all demonstrations. It's all visual. It's all Zoom based.
Newsletters. They're doing everything they can to reach out and connect, and they're trying to find ways to connect authentically. And there's new software being developed, I would say, to sort of find the new authentic connection between people. Not just from ads, but from the potential. We used to talk about, in 2008, 2009, the social graph was a hugely popular concept, in that I could take Chris McAllister's social graph, meaning I know where he's on Facebook, he's on Snapchat, he's on these platforms. I could make a perception that why he's on those platforms, and then I could think about who Chris McAllister is from a mindset. What would he use Facebook for? What's he use Instagram for? And then I try to understand sort of like how you think as a person, and then I try to orientate my business to target that, and be where, I want engineered serendipity. I can't make it an ad in your face. I have to almost plant it in your mind so that it was your idea to love my product from the start. It's inception. And the crazy thing is that can be engineered. And that is being engineered today.
Where's it being engineered today?
Mostly engineered through Facebook, mostly being engineered through the larger brands that can truly afford the multi-pronged strategy to do it. Apple's one of probably the best companies at this point of inception. And what's crazy is they don't incept on the product. They don't ever think about the product. They incept on the notion of where you think next should be, and then they have enough. They have enough residual residue on what they're doing for it to be in line with what you always wanted. So you're not trying to market the new iPad 6000. You're trying to get in line with where that person and what they aspire to be and want to be, and then you're guiding them toward your arc. Right. I know, man, it's crazy, but that's what's happening.
So if you were starting a organization now, right now, and you were training up a sales staff, and you were empowering them to go out there and do it, what technologically would you prime them for?
Well, I would take the sales team and I'd say, you know what, for the first 90 days in this company, you're not in sales. You're in research. Congratulations. Welcome aboard. Now in research, you're going to go out there and you're going to create total understandings. You're going to create personas of your customers. You're going to meet your customers. You're going to do some experimentation. You're actually not going to sell your product. You're actually going to talk to them about everything around what the thing you might want to sell. You want to understand the whole world a little bit. And then you want to play a little bit with some scenario thinking. Like, okay, so Chris McAllister loves his grill, right? I know he's a big griller. But I'm going to say your grill got stolen. It's gone. So what are you going to do for the next 3 weeks? You got a couple parties coming up. How would you handle that? And you're going to tell me about everything you would normally do or how you sort of would approach that. Or what I really love in research is giving people a broken prototype. Give them a product that actually doesn't work. And they pick it up and this should work like this. Should be easier than right. They get all frustrated and they tell you everything that's viscerally what they care about. That is like that. Those visceral attributes of things that they talk about is the foundation of your billion-dollar business, right? So it's understanding your customers. You have to do that before you can sell. You could do basic, hey, we made this thing, check it out, but you're wasting your time. And in fact, a small startup, especially in the beginning, that research phase helps you build the true intellectual property the company is going to be founded on. They have no idea about, right? Like the more they can actually understand how to unlock their customer and understand their customer actually amplifies the value in the company for every time they do it. So you could have a company worth zero right now, go out and study 20 people around a specific niche that you care about, and you've instantly created $300,000 in intellectual property. Right? And you might say, that's crazy. That's not true. Well, it is, because you not only know these people and what they care about, but you have your theory about what your product does to them. So you have your methodology and your framework for understanding the value, and you have the base data. And now you have an opinion. Right? Now you have a perception and an opinion that you can now project into your newsletter and your thought leadership, or you can project into your other aspects, and you can build a foundation. And someone calls you out on it, you have your white paper because you did your research. So you're not going to get caught flat-footed, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you're talking about an authentic connection because you've done the work.
You've done the work.
So, yeah, what you've done for me, Dan, is you've created a really neat connection that seems obvious but wasn't top of mind for me. You know, when we talk with sales teams, we talk with them about being customer centric, which requires an understanding of the buyer and how they perceive value, not our definition of value, but their definition of value. What you just described, you know, this idea of going out and doing research, you're informing, and correct me if I'm using these words incorrectly, but you're informing the algorithm that either the technology will use to connect authentically or the salesperson and their technology will use to connect authentically, but it's still customer driven. I think that's really interesting. The concern I have is when we look at technology and how it can be used to understand us so well that it becomes manipulative.
Oh yeah.
And I wonder what your experience is there, because that manipulativeness can seem authentic, but we know that it's really taking advantage of us.
Well, it's funny. Like 4 years ago, I was on NPR talking to on our Tech Tuesday show, and we were talking about fake news, and the trend was just coming out, and I'm like, yeah, fake news is absolutely going to be generated. Like there's going to be systems in place to generate fake news, and that's definitely happening today. And I think the dangers of these things is technology can not only understand this, but the technology gets used in a way to understand our anxiety and how we're influenced. And our influence is not just useful for telling us sort of what shoes to buy. It's also useful for us, for the systems to understand what we would be most anxious about. What critical events would we most be likely to be rash decision-making from? So it's, money is a pressure point, right? So when you go to sites like Lower My Bills or something like that, or places that can lower your bills, you're in a vulnerable state. You want a discount. If you go to a place to check in, because you want to check in your old dad, my granddad for a medical procedure or something like that. That's one of the best places to actually study experience, is in these critical places, because you'll see experiences that are absolutely horrific, but you'll endure them because you don't want someone to die, right? And it is problematic across the board, and it's not easy for the customer to navigate and actually experience true authenticness. So you almost have to, you want to, even in this digital age, you still want to pick up and talk on the phone if you can, and you want to give people incentives to do that so that you get them to open up from their comfort zone. One of the things that was very popular in the early Web 2.0 innovation timeline was it's in beta. For example, the people that made Slack, before they made Slack, they made a product called Flickr long ago. And Flickr was an image program, basically it's pre-Instagram by probably 5 years or 6 years, if that. And they kept the product in beta the whole time. So every time you logged in, it said, hey, we're in beta, but welcome, try to figure it out, And it was a great program. They stayed in beta, and I always wondered, why do they stay in beta? Because they always left the product open for the customers to actually tell them how to improve it. And so people created a participatory state of mind when they used the product. And then they became loyal to the product because they became authentic engineers of it. So it's really, I can see that coming back, for example, where you're doing co-creation. If you can do co-creation with people, you can create such a hook that is unbreakable in a lot of ways, because they become part of the experience. So.
That is lighting my brain up so much, because I didn't set out to even do coaching or be a coach. Somebody asked for my content and wanted me to coach them, and I was like, well, there's an idea.
Yeah.
And actually kind of co-created it with them. I had the content that I took people through, but it wasn't actually in that kind of format. and then that changed everything. So I love how you said picking up the phone still matters, because I know Jimmy appreciates that, and the people listening will appreciate that. That at the end of the day, the tools can accelerate us, but if we're hiding behind them, not allowing that human connection to occur, I'll look at my little yellow sheet of names to contact and reach out to and be like, I'm old school. I'm writing it on paper. Some of these people, I just get that feeling I'm supposed to call them, the engineered serendipity.
Yeah,
dude,
totally.
Fire me up.
Yeah. I mean, I remember, I think the other thing that's interesting right now is, because we're all online, we're all using online tactics, there are easier ways for us to understand what tactics other companies are using. So there's lots of tools that allow you to study your competition. So you can study how they've used words, AdWords, traffic, placements. You can sort of build a map of how someone would sort of compete with you in ways. What's interesting about that is not necessarily to analyze somebody who's directly competing with you, but to actually analyze a company that you aspire to be. For example, so like I'm in the business of selling custom sneakers. That's cool, but I love the way Tesla markets. Study them. Study how they create their systems and their setups, how they do their triggers, how they're doing it, and then add that to your process. You know what I mean? So it's like you don't have to. Technology is agnostic to what we're talking about. All it cares about is the acceleration of its own purpose. You know what I mean? The infusion of it. In fact, technology loves remixing. And there's nothing more than if the great God of technology doesn't want you to be doing this linear process. It's falling asleep in the chair going like, that's crazy. But if it looks down on earth and sees Dan going, I'm going to take a blender and I'm going to make it work with a fax machine. Technology is going like, I like that guy. That guy's crazy. Let's follow that. He might have an idea there, right? So that's, and you can do that with digital technologies easier. Much harder to do that in the real, but that's actually coming down because more and more people can 3D print, right? More and more people can ideate and create in their basement. I can actually build my own synthesizer in my house and never talk to an engineer on how to do it. I can screw around. And the more people have that ability to do that, and the more that becomes the barriers to do that fall, not only does the ecosystem gets formed around that, which has opportunity in itself, right? When the ecosystem forms, there's all these new opportunities to actually sell products within those ecosystems to support the very people that want to play in that ecosystem. That's a very powerful frame of mind to keep in mind, because that's what's powering 70% of our digital movement. It's not necessarily that we're buying products, it's that we're creating we create a micro ecosystem that then grows to a larger ecosystem, and then that ecosystem itself fuels $4 trillion of development for itself. And now you have 16 of these things all going in different directions. There's an ecosystem around drones, there's an ecosystem around AI, there's an ecosystem around electronic cars. There's an ecosystem around authentic consulting online. You know what I'm saying? And as these ecosystems grow, they create their own economies. And so the question is, where is your business? And, are you in one of those growing ecosystems?
By the river. Are you by the river?
Yeah, exactly.
Outstanding. Yeah, what's really cool about the conversation too is, one of the first things I thought of, Dan, when you were talking is, where is technology getting in our way, right? Because you open up a conversation talking about when we make the decision-making process, the buying process more difficult, we're failing. But we've all said this to ourselves, but I've been hearing this more and more about how overwhelming it is to have all this technology around us and all these ways for people to get a hold of us, especially today versus 6 or 7 months ago when we're just it seems to me that, and the nature of this conversation has been one where we've been talking about even more ways technology can serve us. How can we as human beings exist on all these platforms? How can we be possibly reachable on all these platforms? So at what point does human nature saying, look, I have to just pick and choose, like my kids, pick and choose 2 instead of 10.
Yeah. What's funny is that those are actually becoming the new niche. Like what I mean, like the new micro niche and trend. I saw it happen a couple years ago in Japan when they said, take some time out of your day. Let's enjoy some forest bathing. Forest bathing? What the fuck? What the heck? I'm sorry. What the heck is forest bathing? Like, we go out in the forest, we walk together. It's like you walk on a path. Yes, but it's $38.95, and you can do it for 4 weeks. So, what I mean? So it's like, but you have a good point. You're actually seeing a lot of people reject technology right now too. COVID's been another good example to watch another trend that's happened, right? Where bike sales went up, skyrocketed. People are doing tons of RVs and living across America, right? It's interesting. We have a new realm of like freedom happening. There's a new splinter of freedom that's kind of occurring in our lives. We have a new perception of like how personal time matters. And I think that's an offset, not just of COVID, but more so of the anxiety, the cause and effect of it, and the uncertainty. And there's, I think one trend that is going to spawn, this is a trend that has sort of popped up and gone away and popped up and gone away, is minimalism. Minimalism is going to come back huge because there's going to be this, the notion for the simple. I'm going to cook at home. We're going to actually eat together. Like, I'm going to face you and you're going to, those are crazy paradigms in the world of the generation that grew up on Call of Duty, right? So I think that there are people rejecting technology, especially social mediums that they don't like anymore. And I think that personal time in the outdoors, like I feel like America realized they had a park in their neighborhood. You know what I mean? I think there's that trend is definitely happening. So, and it's there's something about nature that communicates a level of complexity that you can relate to, and at the same time you can feel absolutely serene in, and you can't do that anywhere else. And that's like a drug.
Yeah, it's funny that we're talking about that because yesterday I did some meetings in a park across the street from my house, and I did them back to back, and we walked during them, and I was like, why? I had an office in an expensive part of town,
right?
And I don't now because of COVID. And I had this park across the street the whole time. And why don't I do more meetings? It's just like everything you're saying. I want to drill down on the simplicity complexity thing for people that are listening. I'm just putting a big exclamation mark on that. I'm seeing the same thing, even in the kinds of conversations people have, like even regarding spirituality. It's like, I can't handle the 72 inputs and options for how I could conceive of my spirituality. So then they're reducing it back down to either these like really wild haired, intangible, hard to understand expressions, almost a little bit cult like, not that it would be a cult, or reducing down some of these more ancient traditions down to just a simple black and white expression, because they're looking for that certainty. And I think what I see people doing too in the way they execute their mission or their business and their sales, it's the overwhelm. And so then and I actually feel like it's the same as a philosophical process, and I want to hear what you think about this. It's been called in philosophy the second naivete, so that you progress through the simplicity to the complexity, rather than retreating back to a new superstitious simplicity. You endure that phase to come out to the other side with the second naivete, a hard fought for simplicity of execution and focus, and that is what I see my own self doing in my own progression development. But I wonder what you think about like where that fits with technology and sales. If you think about like Big Kitty, got a team of people, they got to go out and crush and build business. Yes, you've already gotten them to do the scenario studying. They know the customer. They know how do you give them a way of taking that energy and focusing it into some key steps, actions, technologies, any of that?
Well, I think that notion of starting simple and then pushing through the complex, and then sort of having a renowned appreciation for the simple, completely true for technology and the progression of how technology really changes. I think I think on how entrepreneurs are kind of working with technology in that regard. um, I see it a hard one, but I think that's definitely happening. Um, it's in technology. It's a fast paced moving environment. Like right now, we're still. In technology, it's just a billion things going on, and one of the tools and techniques that people use is one is called a journey map. You build a journey map of your product, or really more so not only your product but your customer. Where does the customer find out about it? How do they first approach it? How do they first use it? How do they tell their friends about it? How do they share it with others? How do they, what's the life cycle of the tech, and then how do they go back full circle again? And so you're trying to understand that life cycle of the product. So how long does it stay in the customer's sort of visceral mindset, or in the mindset that keeps the value there? And that really depends on whether it's a staple or something more authentic. If it's a digital product, it's a battleground. It's a digital product. You're battling for attention, and if it's just on attention alone, you're going to lose. People have to find some authentic reason why they carry it. There's a reason why I carry Chris McAllister's book with me wherever I go on vacation. Why? Because it's a fun read, makes you feel relaxed. What is it? Why do I carry the Bible with me everywhere I go? Bible's an interesting product to study, right? Why is that? I could keep, you know what I mean? So it's like you have to understand the role of that product in that person's life beyond the sale. If all you think about is the sale and then you walk away, you don't have a business. You know what I mean?
That's such a freaking meta answer to everything that I think I see people in some businesses that we're connected to struggling, because they're just looking at that one isolated piece, trying to address it with an adoption of technology, rather than saying, I've got to look at this whole big picture, man. I got some chills. Chills.
Another big thing that's connected to that is the notion of freemium. People like, I'll market for free and I'll get them in the door. That doesn't always work. Sometimes if people read your service as truly valuable and it's free, it snaps something in their brain. I struggle with that because I do a lot of mentoring and consulting. A lot of times I give my consulting away for free, and so then the perception is, oh, maybe it's not worth that much. Maybe it's not that good. My brother has a research company. I get a lot of the stuff from my brother Chris Rockwell. There's this thing to him. That's where I learned a lot of stuff from. There's always a sense of the paradox of choice. You showed me a pair of shoes and you gave me 38 colors to choose from. It creates a pause in me to figure out what I want, causes me to create more research, actually learn about another shoe and go buy it.
Right.
So you kind of wigged me out, and that's one of the other things that's kind of, one of the other stories we always hear about was how Steve Jobs always used the word magic when he gives talks. Look at this magical screen that comes on. So easy. It's like magic. Why? Because magic is fantasy. Magic makes you feel gifted, godlike. And now you're in control of the gifted, godlike. Do you want the iPad because of the features of Keynote, or do you want to feel like a god? So it's like, your product has to think beyond the value it provides. I feel like the value is an equation of how it was presented to me. There's a percentage there. The perception of who created it. Half the times people want to buy a Tesla, not because it's a great car, but because, you know what? Elon Musk's crazy. He's like the new Steve Jobs. I want to own a piece of him.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we aspire to that. This is a crazy synthesizer that I'm building over here. And I'm buying modules from a guy in Sweden because he's just innovative, and I want to own like one of the modules. He makes 1,000 run module. I want to own a piece of him, like a piece of art. So that's a very powerful thing today. So it can't just be about the quick sale. It has to be more.
I love the conversation, Dan, because we're what we're discovering, or what I'm discovering, is that we're at this inflection point where we have this demand for the authentic, the demand for the minimalistic, the demand for the most natural, basic experience, this move back to basics and back to the basic elements of what make us who we are, and the experiences that our grandparents and their grandparents had in life without technology, and then we have this amazing cacophony of development on the technical side that is just drowning many people, drowning us in options and choices. And that's really driving that move to our authenticity. And in sales, especially, you've got folks that are out there using every means possible to be as inauthentic as possible.
Exactly.
Reaching out to us. And then there are folks like Chris and I, like, okay, how do we get above the noise? Well, maybe we just show up the way we are. I wanted to reach out by phone because you know what? It's the most authentic way I could figure out to have a conversation with you.
Yep. Yeah. Another thing that salespeople should do early on in a startup, and especially when it's brand new, is it's another place for them to actually innovate their sales. They should take a sales team and think about doing like 3 90-day trials. Let's say you have 3 salespeople. Each one of them for 30 days or for 90 days is going to try a different sales tactic. So the first guy is going to go all digital, newsletter. It's going to be everything like that. Now you can do this in an experimental setting with an experimental product. Maybe you're not going to do this on your actual product because people are like, oh, I don't want to hurt my baby, right? But in a lot of ways, the risk of hurting your baby actually is seen by authentic to the customer. The fact that you would risk trying to learn about them is actually, I might not need your fork and spoon, but the fact that you approached the innovation in such a way that you cared about what I thought actually makes me want to buy one just because I like what you're doing, right? So, I tell this to new entrepreneurs too, is that but you can do this in the sales process, is try 3 different approaches to the sales. One person is totally old school. He gets the phone, sends postcards, calls people up. Jesse, how you doing? Right? He imagines the world that doesn't exist on the internet. Person in the middle is doing everything digital marketing. Yes, it's all automated, but what level of true sales impact do you have? And the other person is completely, Rihanna style social media, influencing, and you're seeing which one gets traction. Now, young startups and systems do favor automation. They do favor things that automatically make the car move. So step by step, and it has its own momentum. And that's what the startup wants. The startup wants to wake up in the morning or at the end of the day, and they see, all right, I'm going to put $10 in the box, go to bed, and they wake up and there's 10,000, and people are like, woohoo, it worked. I don't know what happened, but there's new money in here, right? Sometimes that's cool. But the more that scales, you don't know how the money got in the box, the more that becomes an issue. You need to understand what's happening. The person who's doing it more in person and authentic might be generating less money, but each one of those dollars is actually tied to loyalty or tied to true traction, So there's just different things to think about. But experimenting is really key in the beginning because you don't know. You're going in with a ton of assumptions, and you think and that's the most dangerous time. It's exciting to think what you know is going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen when I put my blender and my facts together, but it might be kind of cool. And it's fun to create that simulation, but you're doing that to learn from the whole thing. You're not really doing that to truly sell the first blender-enabled fax machine, which could be a billion-dollar business. You know what I mean? Yeah.
No assuming. Dude, man, I don't remember. It's been a while. I'm taking notes, so thank you, Dan. This has been awesome.
Man, I got my. Yeah. So, guys, unfortunately, we are bound by time. But before we wrap, I really want to ask each of you kind of to summarize what you learned today, what we talked to. What was the essence that you're taking away from the conversation today? Because it went everywhere, but there were powerful themes that emerged.
That's always my fault. I go in too many directions.
No. Yeah, for me, the immediate takeaway is to to come back to this idea, because I'm in the weeds on a number of projects, and to not forget the overall journey of the customer, more than lifestyle, what's their life, but it's the difference between an Instagram ad that shows the product and an Instagram ad that shows the person that's experiencing the product. So good deepening reminder on that. So thank you, Dan.
Yeah, I think there's lots of places to sort of to do that as a practice within the business and even for fun. Like when my wife and I go to an estate sale, I love going through a person's house and seeing the things that lasted the test of time. You know what I mean? You get to see, wow, this old Kodak camera is here. What was about Kodak that made this thing sit here for 16 generations? One of the things you're not going to see. That's one of the problems actually of the digital age, is that like, how does it fade? When everything is on now and then tomorrow it's gone, like it's saved on a hard drive somewhere, but it's not actually part of our sensory. So whatever you are selling, make sure it has some sensory level aspect that can stand the test of time. That's the final note.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Sweet.
And I loved, Dan, what you opened my eyes to is everything we talked about today was connected with a theme of research. Knowing, don't guess, know.
Yep.
Don't assume, know. And the more you know about your customers, the more authentic you can be, and the stronger the connection. We're always asked by clients, how do I make success? How do I make change permanent versus temporary? And it's really about, I think the message you can take from your comments today is that investment in research and that investment in knowing your customers is really the first step to creating that permanency to the changes and investments you make in your business.
It creates your playbook, and if you have that, and I think the last thing I would give to everybody is that the first startup your idea have is probably going to be the wrong one, and the idea you come up with as that first idea evolves and you learn from it, that's the true idea it comes from.
That's awesome.
And so if you can keep a note, you got to stay open for where the universe is trying to take you.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan.
Sweet. And thanks for having me. I loved it.
We've had Dan Rockwell with Big Kitty Labs here in Columbus, and we will have you back again. And maybe we'll even have Chris next time since you met him, we got to have him on as well.
Oh, yeah. You got to talk to Chris. My brother is awesome at this stuff.
That's awesome.
Sweet.
We've been talking to Dan. With me, James Rories has been my partner, Chris McAllister. Thank you for joining us, everybody. We will see you again next week.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.